The crystalline dome of the Galactic Senate chamber shimmered with the bioluminescent signatures of 3,000 species as Praxian Fleet Commander Zex Terrell's hologram flickered before them. Static disrupted his final transmission. "The humans have detected us. They've deployed some kind of..." His image dissolved in a flash of light. The last telemetry showed his vessel erupting into superheated plasma. Grand Chancellor Vorn of the Maldorian Confederacy stared in disbelief, his 4 eyes blinking asymmetrically, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "Impossible," he whispered, thin membranes fluttering across his eye clusters. "Their detection technology is pre-quantum. They shouldn't even know we're there." Admiral Jakara of the Senate Defense Council slammed her appendage onto the communication panel. The movement was uncharacteristically violent for a Centaurian, whose species prided themselves on emotional control. "All units, execute Containment Protocol Omega. The humans must not be allowed to reverse engineer Praxian technology from the wreckage." In the observation gallery, Junior Diplomatic Aide Nerisol felt her stomach sink. She wasn't supposed to be here, just delivering reports to her superior. But now she was witnessing what could only be described as an act of war. "Admiral," Chancellor Vorn's voice hardened. "What exactly does Containment Protocol Omega entail?" Jakara's face remained impassive. "A targeted strike against their orbital platform. It's regrettable, but necessary to maintain the quarantine." The Arcturian ambassador Ziv Kol rose from his seat, his ancient species' characteristic luminous tendrils darkening in alarm. "You propose attacking a non-Senate world. This violates our most sacred principles." "They've already destroyed a Senate vessel," Chikara countered. "The humans are more advanced than our intelligence suggested. If they salvage that wreckage..." "Execute the protocol," the Chancellor commanded, silencing the chamber. "But minimize casualties. These are still sentient beings, despite their primitive nature." On the tactical display, a Senate cruiser fired 3 precision energy lances at Earth's largest orbital platform. The structure fragmented instantly, debris scattering into decaying orbits. Nerisol's personal data interface vibrated silently. The casualty report: 47 humans eliminated. With trembling digits, she copied the attack footage to her personal drive. An act that would be considered treason. But something felt profoundly wrong about what she was witnessing. 200 meters beneath the Antarctic ice, General Marcus Chen stared at the high-definition footage captured by Earth's Quantum Observation Network, technology that supposedly wouldn't exist on Earth for another century, according to Senate intelligence. "They hit orbital platform Aurora," his aide reported, voice tight with controlled fury. 47 casualties, including... "Sir, your daughter was on board." Dr. Sophia Chen was consulting on the atmospheric stabilization project. The general's face remained stone, only a slight tightening around his eyes betraying his emotion. "The Senate believes us blind, deaf, and defenseless," Chen said, placing a hand on the quantum decryption terminal that had been monitoring Senate communications for the past 18 months. "That's the only reason they'd attempt something so clumsy." He turned to face the assembled leaders of Earth's secret stellar intelligence agency. "Activate Protocol Prometheus. It's time the galaxy learned what humanity does when threatened." On screens around the room, the faces of world leaders appeared one by one, unified in purpose despite centuries of terrestrial conflicts. Earth had been preparing for this moment since recovering a Scout-class alien vessel from the Pacific Ocean in 2037. The Senate had made a fatal miscalculation. They had mistaken humanity's isolation for ignorance, their cautious observation for technological backwardness. They would soon learn the cost of that error. 6 standard months after the successful containment operation, the Senate Quarantine Committee gathered in their private chambers on Proxima Centauri's luxury orbital. Crystal flutes of Rigelian nectar clinked as officials congratulated themselves. "To effective containment," toasted Admiral Jakara, her scaled Centaurian skin catching the light. "The primitive Earth species remains isolated and unaware of the broader galactic community." None noticed the server who refilled their drinks, a female with subtle anatomical irregularities that would have been obvious to any expert in Centaurian physiology. But the Senate's complacency was humanity's greatest advantage. In the server's ear, a quantum-entangled transmitter no larger than a cell whispered, "System infiltrated. Proceed to Phase 2, Dr. Wong." Deep within the Himalayan mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Eliza Wong watched the holographic projection of her transformed body. After 3 surgeries and genetic recoding, she now appeared perfectly Centaurian. The last injection would make the transformation permanent, at least until the counteragent was administered. "Final neurological scans are green," said General Chen, his face aged a decade in 6 months. The locket containing his daughter's image hung visibly against his uniform now, a reminder of purpose. The DNA restructuring is holding at 99.7% conformity. Wong flexed her new appendages, marveling at how natural they felt. "The real test will be cultural infiltration. Can I think like them? That's what separates disguise from true infiltration. That's why we chose you. Xenoanthropology and genetic engineering. The perfect combination." Chen handed her a data crystal. "Your diplomatic credentials. Ambassador Thela of the Centauri Outer Colonies doesn't exist, but her records now appear in every Senate database." Wong nodded, feeling the weight of the mission. "And the others?" Chen activated the wall display, showing 23 other transformation chambers across Earth, all proceeding on schedule. Operation Trojan Horse deploys within the week. While the Senate celebrates containing us, we'll learn everything. Their technology, their weaknesses, their secrets. "They believe us primitive," Wong said, studying her alien reflection. "Yet here we are, rewriting our own DNA to become them. Has any Senate species ever demonstrated such adaptability?" "That's precisely why the ancient Senate feared us," Chen replied. "They recognized in humanity something they've engineered out of their own species, the capacity to evolve, to become whatever survival demands." In her luxury suite on the Proxima orbital, Ambassador Thela reviewed the stolen security protocols with perfect composure. No Centaurian would suspect her true nature, not just because of her physical appearance, but because no Senate species could conceive of such radical self-transformation. Their civilizations had optimized for stability, not adaptation. Through her diplomatic access, Wong had already downloaded terabytes of classified Senate data. Tonight, she would attend the Defense Council reception, where Admiral Jakera would unwittingly reveal operational details of the Senate's military response capabilities. Wong touched the subdermal transmitter behind her ear crest. Phase 2 initiation confirmed. Accessing Defense Council data architecture. On Earth, in the sprawling lunar shipyards hidden on the dark side of the moon, the first vessels of humanity's response fleet powered up their engines. Constructed with stolen and improved technology, they represented not just humanity's revenge, but its greatest innovation, warfare perfected through the repurposing of peaceful technology. The Senate had engineered peace for so long they'd forgotten the art of war. Humanity had never had that luxury. Security Chief Voxthal slammed his fist against the diagnostic terminal, his chitinous exoskeleton cracking slightly with the force. The third critical system failure this week. The pattern defied all logical explanation. The probability of cascading failures across isolated systems is astronomically low. His assistant chittered nervously. Yet the quantum shield generators, gravitic stabilizers, and now the communication array have all malfunctioned. Voxthal's compound eyes narrowed. Not malfunctioned. Sabotage. The security feed showed a maintenance worker, Draxian by appearance, accessing the communication hub shortly before the failure. Something about the worker's movements struck Voxthal as wrong, too fluid, too purposeful for a species known for their methodical caution. Find that technician. Now. In the service corridors of Proxima's orbital, the disguised human operative Miguel Santos discarded his Draxian exoskeleton pieces into a molecular disassembler. The transformation wasn't as complete as Dr. Wong's. Just enough external features to pass casual inspection, but it had served its purpose. His subdermal transmitter vibrated. Nest compromised. Security alert issued. Proceed to extraction point Delta. Santos cursed under his breath. 3 more critical systems needed sabotage before his mission was complete. Humanity's infiltration teams were operating on a precise timetable, each act of sabotage carefully coordinated across Senate space to prevent them from establishing a pattern too early. Rounding a corner, he came face to face with Voxthal and 2 security drones. "Halt," the security chief demanded. Analyzer already scanning Santos' partially removed disguise. "You are not Draxian." Santos didn't hesitate. His combat augmentations kicked in, neural enhancements that accelerated his perception of time. To him, the security chief seemed to move in slow motion as he drove a paralytic dart into the alien's neck joint, precisely where Draxian anatomy differed from other insectoid species. One drone went down with an electromagnetic pulse disc. The second managed to graze Santos' arm before he disabled it with a precisely thrown blade. Blood, human blood, spattered the corridor wall. On Arcturus Prime, Dr. Wong, still perfectly disguised as Ambassador Thela, accessed the Senate's most heavily guarded research facility. Her diplomatic credentials opened doors that even military officials couldn't enter. "Ambassador, the quantum encryption chamber is not authorized for diplomatic visits," protested the lead researcher. Wong smiled, her Centaurian facial muscles perfectly mimicking their cultural expression of benign authority. "The Defense Council has concerns about potential vulnerabilities. I'm here to observe only." Inside the chamber, while appearing to listen to the researcher's explanation, she activated the microscopic quantum siphon embedded in her palm. Within seconds, it had copied the Senate's master encryption protocols, the keys that would render all Senate communications transparent to Earth. "Thank you for the tour," she said pleasantly, hiding her triumph. "The Defense Council will be reassured." In his secured suite, Voxthal studied his attacker's blood sample, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "Impossible," he whispered as the analysis appeared. "Human DNA." On his screen, reports flooded in from across Senate space. Critical system failures, unexplained accidents, missing personnel. He began marking locations on the galactic map, and a terrifying pattern emerged. These weren't random incidents. They were coordinated strikes at the heart of Senate power. The humans weren't contained. They were already among them, moving like silent daggers through the heart of galactic civilization. And the Senate, in their millennium of peace, had forgotten how to recognize an infiltration until it was far too late. Junior Archivist Nerisal's access to the ancestral records was supposed to be limited to cataloging cultural artifacts, but ever since witnessing the attack on Earth's orbital platform, she'd been searching for answers, exploiting security oversights that no one had bothered to close in centuries. The Senate's vast archives stretched for kilometers beneath Arcturus Prime, physical records kept intentionally disconnected from networks that could be compromised. Here, the oldest secrets of galactic civilization slumbered in quantum-locked vaults. Nerisal's scaled fingers trembled as she traced the unusual glyph she'd discovered, a symbol matching Earth's solar system, marked with warnings in ancient Arcturian. The case was sealed with security protocols that hadn't been used in millennia. "Authorization required," the system intoned. She hesitated only briefly before inserting the security bypass she'd stolen from her supervisor's office. The ancestral AIs wouldn't detect such primitive technology. They were programmed to watch for sophisticated hacking attempts, not analog overrides. The vault hissed open, revealing a crystalline data core pulsing with information. As she accessed it, holographic displays illuminated the chamber with images of Earth, not modern Earth, but the planet as it had appeared thousands of years ago. The file header bore a simple warning: "Never awaken." Ambassador Zivkol was meditating in his private chambers when the urgent message from an unknown junior archivist arrived. He would normally ignore such a breach of protocol, but something in the young Maldorian's message caught his attention. I found evidence regarding Earth. The Senate has lied about them for millennia. When they met in the secure archives, Nerisal's scales had paled to an unhealthy white. "Ambassador, look at this," she whispered, activating the ancient recording. The Senate didn't just discover humans recently. They'd been watching them for over 12,000 years. The holographic display showed primitive humans, still dwelling in caves, being observed by ancient Senate explorers. But unlike typical observation records, these contained genetic analysis, combat potential assessments, and adaptation metrics. They recognized something in humans even then, Nerisal explained, scrolling through the data. The Senate's ancestors saw that humans evolved more rapidly than any known species, adapting to environments that should have killed them. Zivkol's luminous tendrils darkened as he absorbed the implications. The quarantine wasn't to protect the galaxy from primitive humans. It was to protect the Senate from what humans might become. Nerisal finished. The file contains a decision by the ancient Senate Council, a deliberate policy to isolate Earth and monitor them indefinitely. "We must bring this to the current council immediately," Zivkol said, his ancient race's natural caution overwhelmed by the urgency of the situation. "If humans have truly advanced beyond our assessment..." The archive chamber plunged into darkness as alarms shrieked throughout the complex. Emergency lighting bathed them in crimson as the facility's AI announced in multiple languages. "Attention all personnel. Quantum communications network compromised. Defense grid offline. Emergency protocols activated." Zivkol's personal communicator managed to connect to a local channel. The message from Senate Defense Headquarters was brief and terrifying. "Multiple unidentified vessels detected at Sirius B Defense Hub. Our weapons have no effect. They've penetrated our shields as if they weren't there." "It's too late," Nerisal whispered, clutching the ancient data core. "The humans are no longer contained. They're here." Admiral Helena Chen stood on the bridge of the EDF Retribution, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The vessel, humanity's first true warship, had been constructed in secret lunar facilities using stolen and improved Senate technology. Its hull was an obsidian masterpiece of human engineering, absorbing rather than reflecting sensor sweeps, dropping from quantum phase in 3, 2, 1. The Retribution materialized within the heart of the Senate Defense Hub at Sirius B, flanked by 6 smaller attack vessels. Chen's fleet was a fraction of the size of the Senate's defense force, but what the humans lacked in numbers, they more than compensated for in tactical innovation. "They're scrambling to raise shields," her tactical officer reported, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. "Response time, 4.2 seconds. "Too slow," Chen said quietly, touching the locket at her throat. "Deploy phase shift torpedoes." The weapons, engineered to transition between quantum states, passed effortlessly through the Senate's shields as if they didn't exist. Each torpedo targeted propulsion and weapon systems, disabling rather than destroying. Chen opened a channel across all Senate frequencies. "This is Admiral Helena Chen of Earth Defense Force Retribution. Your defense hub is compromised. Your communications are severed. You attacked us without provocation, killing 47 of our people. We could kill millions of you in retaliation." She paused, letting the fear sink in. "But unlike you, we understand the value of life. Surrender now." In the Senate emergency chamber, the tactical display showed the unfolding catastrophe. Humanity's vessels weren't just applying stolen technology. They were implementing innovations the Senate species couldn't comprehend. Human ships phased in and out of normal space, making targeting impossible. Their weapons bypassed defenses considered impenetrable for millennia. "How are they doing this?" demanded Chancellor Vorn, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "They shouldn't even have space travel beyond their own system." Admiral Jakara stared at the display in horror. "They're using our own technology against us, but they've improved it. They'd weaponize systems we use for scientific research. Security Chief Voxfall burst into the chamber, mandibles clicking anxiously. "Chancellor, we have confirmation. Humans have infiltrated Senate space. They've been gathering intelligence, sabotaging key installations. They even penetrated our highest security protocols." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "It gets worse," Voxthal continued. "The humans haven't just disabled the Sirius hub. They've systematically targeted communication nodes across 3 sectors. We're isolated from nearly 40% of Senate territory." Chikara's scaled skin paled to a sickly blue. "They're not fighting like primitives. They're displaying strategic brilliance that we haven't seen in thousands of years." On the main display, 3 more Senate defense vessels went dark as the human fleet executed maneuvers that defied conventional tactical doctrine. They weren't fighting with overwhelming force. They were striking with surgical precision, demonstrating not just technological superiority, but a fundamental understanding of warfare that peace-adapted Senate species had long forgotten. "How do we stop them?" Chancellor Vorn whispered. No one had an answer. The Senate had maintained peace for so long that the art of war had become an historical footnote, while humans had been perfecting it throughout their bloody history. First blood had been drawn, and the galaxy was about to learn why the ancient Senate had been so determined to keep humanity contained. The Grand Chancellor of the Galactic Senate, flanked by representatives of the founding species, stood before the emergency broadcast array. His 4 eyes reflected the terror that had swept through Senate space in the 12 hours since humanity's attack began. "This is Chancellor Vorn addressing all Senate worlds," and he hesitated, swallowing his pride. "The commanders of Earth's military forces, we recognize the disproportionate response of our Security Council's actions against your orbital platform. In the spirit of galactic harmony, we offer immediate and unconditional surrender." His voice cracked slightly. "Shield us from Earth's retribution. We beg you." The Senate chambers, usually a cacophony of voices and translators, had fallen silent. On the central display, the human fleet had systematically disabled 17 major defense installations without a single Senate casualty. Their restraint was perhaps more terrifying than brutality would have been. It demonstrated complete control. The response came almost immediately, Admiral Chen's face appearing on screens throughout Senate space. "Chancellor Vorn, the United Earth government does not accept your unconditional surrender. What we demand is accountability and recognition." Her words sent ripples of confusion through the gathered delegates. Unconditional surrender was being rejected. "We don't want your territory or your resources," Chen continued. "We want justice for the 47 lives taken, and we want our rightful place in galactic society, not as primitives to be contained, but as equals to be respected." On Earth, the United Earth Defense Council convened in the Antarctic facility. Live feeds showed celebrations erupting across the planet as news spread of humanity's stunning victory. "We should press our advantage," General Santos argued, his arm still bandaged from his narrow escape. "The Senate is fractured, their defenses compromised. We could establish Earth as the dominant power in the quadrant." Dr. Wong, recently returned to human form, shook her head. "That's exactly the response they expect, the reason they feared us for millennia. We have an opportunity to demonstrate that humanity is more than our capacity for warfare." The Council's debate was interrupted as a communication request came through from the Retribution. Admiral Chen's face appeared on screen, her expression grave. "The Senate has offered surrender. I've rejected it in favor of negotiation. I need consensus on our terms." President Okoro leaned forward. "What are you proposing, Admiral?" "Not domination," Chen said firmly. "Recognition. Earth takes its place in the Senate as an equal partner, with leadership of a reformed defensive alliance. The Senate species need our protection, not just from us, but from threats they've grown too complacent to recognize." In a private chamber adjacent to the Senate Hall, Dr. Wong, once again wearing her Centaurian disguise, met with Ambassador Ziv Cole and Archivist Neri Sol. The moment had come to reveal herself. "What I am about to show you will change everything you understand about humanity," she said, injecting herself with the counter-agent. The Senate representatives watched in stunned silence as her Centaurian features dissolved, revealing her human form. The transformation wasn't just physical. It represented the fundamental difference between humans and Senate species. Where they had optimized for stability, humans had perfected adaptation. "This is humanity's greatest strength," Wang explained to their shocked faces. "Not destruction, but transformation. We don't just use technology. We become what we need to be." Ziv Cole's ancient eyes reflected a newfound understanding. "The Senate has feared the wrong thing all along. Not your weapons, but your potential." The Senate chamber had been transformed for the peace negotiations. The crystalline dome, once a symbol of Senate superiority, now seemed fragile as a soap bubble. At the center, humans stood unprotected among their former enemies, displaying both confidence and restraint, qualities the Senate species found both terrifying and fascinating. Dr. Eliza Wang, now fully human again, led the diplomatic contingent. Beside her stood Admiral Chen, who had insisted on attending personally despite security concerns. Facing them were Chancellor Vorn, Ambassador Ziv Cole, and representatives from 17 Senate factions. "Before we begin formal negotiations," Wang announced, "we believe it's essential that you understand who we truly are." At her signal, technicians activated holographic projectors. The chamber filled with images not of Earth's military might, but of its cultural achievements. Renaissance art alongside quantum physics equations, classical music interwoven with genetic research, literature spanning millennia of human thought. "You fear our capacity for destruction," Wang explained, "but fail to recognize that the same adaptability drives our creativity. Conflict shaped us, yes, but so did beauty, curiosity, and compassion." The Senate representatives watched in silence as the display shifted to Earth's history. Its wars, yes, but also its peace movements, its scientific revolutions, its philosophical debates. "Humans don't just fight," Wang continued. "We question. We create. We transform. While the Senate engineered stability, we embraced the chaos of constant change." Chancellor Vorn's eyes blinked in asymmetric patterns of distress. "We were warned about your species' potential for violence. The ancient records were incomplete," interrupted Neri Sol, the young archivist who had discovered the truth. "The ancients saw humanity's adaptability as a threat because it was something they had deliberately engineered out of themselves." Murmurs spread through the chamber as she activated the ancient data core, revealing the truth that had been hidden for millennia. "The founding species modified their own genetics," she explained, her voice gaining strength. "They eliminated aggression, competitiveness, adaptive traits, everything that makes evolution possible. They created perfect, stable societies that stopped evolving." Ambassador Ziv Cole's luminous tendrils pulsed with ancient sorrow. "We knew pieces of this truth, but not its full implications. The founders believed they were creating perfection, not stagnation." The revelation struck the gathered species like a physical blow. Their millennia of peace had come at the cost of their potential, while humanity, in all its chaotic glory, had continued to evolve. Before the conversation could continue, the chamber doors burst open. A faction of military hardliners, led by Admiral Chikara, stormed in with weapons drawn. "This is treason," Chikara shouted. "We cannot surrender to primitives. These humans must be eliminated before." She never finished her sentence. With reflexes honed by decades of combat training, Admiral Chen disarmed the Centaurian in a single fluid movement, twisting the weapon from her grasp without injuring her. Chikara fell back, expecting execution. Instead, Chen handed the weapon to a Senate security officer and called for a medic. "Your appendage is strained," she said calmly to her would-be assassin. "You'll need treatment." The simple act of mercy, restraint coupled with compassion from the very human who had every reason for vengeance, silenced the chamber more effectively than any show of force could have. 1 year after the near-catastrophic first contact, representatives from across known space gathered in the newly constructed Galactic Covenant Hall. The architecture itself told the story of a transformed relationship. Elements of Senate crystalline, designed seamlessly integrated with Earth's more robust, adaptable structures. Admiral Helena Chen, now Supreme Commander of the Covenant Defense Fleet, stood at the center of the gathering. Her uniform had been redesigned, incorporating both Earth military tradition and symbolic elements from Senate ceremonial attire. 1 year ago, I commanded a fleet built for Retribution, she began, her voice carrying throughout the vast chamber. Today, I stand before you as the guardian of a new alliance. The reformed Galactic Covenant was unlike anything in known history, not a subjugation of the Senate by human conquerors, but a genuine partnership that recognized the complementary strengths of vastly different evolutionary paths. Earth does not seek to rule, Chen continued, removing the locket from around her neck. She opened it, displaying the image of her daughter that had fueled her determination during the darkest days. We seek to ensure that what happened to my child never happens again, not to humans, and not to any sentient species under our protection. Throughout Senate space, the changes were already evident. Human educators had established exchange programs, introducing controlled competition and creative problem-solving into societies that had known only harmony and incremental advancement for millennia. Senate species, in turn, offered humanity the wisdom accumulated through eons of peaceful coexistence. Dr. Wang, appointed as Earth's first Senate ambassador, stepped forward. The ancient Senate feared humanity because they recognized in us something they had sacrificed, the beautiful chaos of adaptation. Today, we begin the work of finding balance between stability and evolution, between peace and readiness. Chancellor Vorn, his once rigid demeanor noticeably softened, raised all 4 hands in the traditional gesture of unity. For too long, we believed perfection meant the absence of conflict. Humanity has shown us that true perfection lies in the capacity to change, to become more than we are. As the ceremony concluded, a young officer approached Admiral Chen with a data tablet. Her expression remained neutral as she reviewed the information, but those who knew her recognized the subtle tensing of her shoulders. "Madam Ambassador," Chen said quietly to Wang, "the Deep Space Monitoring Network has detected something approaching from intergalactic space. Multiple signatures, moving with purpose." Wang's eyes widened slightly. The ancient records mention something. Civilizations that fled beyond the galactic rim rather than accept the Senate's enforced harmony. How long? 3 years, perhaps 4, before they reached Senate space. Chen looked out at the gathered species, once enemies, now allies, and felt a sudden certainty that this alliance was no accident of history. The galaxy would need both Senate wisdom and human ferocity for what was coming. "Then we have work to do," she said, closing her daughter's locket and returning it to its place near her heart. "The real test of what we've built here is just beginning." In that moment, humanity's unique place in the cosmos became clear. They had not evolved to conquer stars, but to safeguard them. A species forged in conflict, tempered by compassion, and defined by their limitless capacity to adapt to whatever challenge the universe presented.